Hi, good evening, everyone. Um, Today we are here. Okay, let's just wait for a couple of minutes while people join in. And I have set my camera for the evening. Um, and I can't see anything clearly, so this should be fine. So, once again, good evening, everyone. And today we are going to talk about a very important book, a book which is very close to my heart, and I've just finished reading it. It's called Elegy for the East. I hope your lateral reading is good. Um, it was originally written in Assamese in 1997 by Dr. Dhrubajyoti Borah, and it was titled as Kalantha Trilogy. Now, there is something very special about literature, words, and voices from the conflict zone. Their story is definitely not mine, but it matters as much. And for these reasons, for obvious reasons, it's important that we document, publish these voices and words. For those who don't know, I am Trisha De Niyogi, director of Niyogi Books, and I thank Kitab Khana for this opportunity to talk about this very important book with the author as well as the translator himself. Now, in the conflict zone, the question it is what happens on the street does not really stay at the street. It enters people's homes, minds, and forces them to go in search for the answers. But what happens? They're left with more questions, and these questions are asked in these good books and literature. Good evening, everyone. I think the video's gone off or something. Can you see me? Is it here? Is it back? Oh. Can everybody see you? Can everybody see me? Sorry. Okay, it's good, right? Yes. So let me get started. I'm just waiting for the author to come in, and he's here. So I'll just add him. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, Trisha. How are you?
I am good too. I'm just going to place the camera and fix it because suddenly there was some disturbance and I had to uh, move around the camera a bit. I think this is okay. And let me just ask everybody if I'm visible. Um, if sir is visible, because sometimes I don't get to know our heads get cut off in very weird ways. So I just want to check if we are all fine. Um, can anybody tell us if we are all okay? Our heads are not cut off or anything else? Yeah, I think it's fine. A warm welcome to you, sir, to Kitab Khana's Translation Tuesday. And so we are going to talk about your latest book, Elegy for the East. And I'll give a small introduction for the people who do not know. I've already started talking about the importance of this book in a very publisher-like manner. So there will be a lot other questions I'm going to ask you about the book and which only you can answer. So, a little bit about our speaker tonight, our author here. Dr. Dhrubajyoti Borah is an Indian writer who writes in Assamese and English. A brilliant novelist, he has written more than 20 novels, big and small, on various aspects of human existence. Set in the lush green valleys, steaming forests, emerald tea plantations, and rolling hills of Assam, his novels tell us the stories of the youths in angst, of groups who struggle to bring about a bit of more of a just society, and of women who search for true meaning of life amidst trials and tribulations. Many of his writings are viewed through the eyes of the subaltern and marginalized stratum, whose entire lives are a yearning for emancipation from social and political forces that seek to subdue them. Seeped with the essence of contemporaneous history and the historical experience of the people, Dr. Borah's exploration of post colonial ethos and angst is masterly. His voice is urgent and genuine with a rare universal appeal. A very warm welcome to you once again.
Thank
So,
you.
without much ado, I'm going to dive into the questions. But just before that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the context of the book in the publishing scenario. I think some time back, publisher and writer Urvashi Butalia once commented that when public commented that publishing writers from Northeast while publishing writers from Northeast, it is difficult not to look at the political nature of the writing. Now, I agree to that to a certain extent, that it's difficult, but I do not see it's impossible. Having said that, as a publisher, in Niyogi Books, we have been publishing books from the Northeast for some time now, and we have had the honor of publishing also Arupa Patangya Kalita and her collection of short stories, The Musk and Other Stories, which are more of human drama set in different settings, especially rural Assam. But this book fits what Dr. Butalia had said, um, and it makes it even more important in today's time when freedom of speech is being questioned almost entire everywhere. So, without much ado, I'd like to dive deep, and I have a set of questions that I've prepared already, and some questions which will be spontaneous throughout the evening. Um, Now, the first question is a brief question about the nomenclature of the book. Um, you originally titled the book as the Prose of Tempest, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
and later changed it to Elegy for the East. While the meaning of the latter is clear, the meaning of the former was a little cloudy to me. Could you please explain what you meant by that?
Okay, I will try. I will try to meet your question. See, the
Yeah,
original Assamese book, when it was written way back, was titled Kalantha or Gadya.
yeah.
Kalantha or Gadya, and the trilogy of the same book is known as Kalantha Trilogy. I'll just show you. This is the Kalantha or Gadya, the
Huh.
original in Assamese, and this
Okay.
is the trilogy. There are three independent
Ah.
books of the same theme made into a
Hmm.
trilogy. They are not connected,
Hmm.
standalone
Okay.
books. But in the first English translation, the title I kept was Prose of Tempest. Now, because it was a really tempestuous time through
Hmm.
which Assam and all her people had to go through, when there were armed nationalist insurgencies which tried to don the garb of Che Guevarian revolutionary socialism, but actually nationalist in content. Secondly, there were innocent people were being killed, both by the insurgents as well as by the state. Children were blown up by bombs, even on the Independence Day gathering, and lot of impressionable, starry-eyed, ideologically idealistic youth took the path of violence. The state responded, and it responded by severe repression, denial of rights, draconian laws, and even by secret killings. The common people who was put into this grind were helpless. Helpless before the omnipotent state and helpless before vengeful insurgents. The book contains the story of the churn of the tragedies of those times. Hence, it was called a tempest, a time where people lost their innocence. And the writer tried to record this in an unadorned narrative, the prose. Hence, the name was given. Now, Elegy of the East, Elegy for the East, is both a serious reflection of the social tragedy which brought in by violence, a serious reflection in the narrative, a serious reflection on stories, and at the same time, it was a lament for the innocence that was lost. This period led to loss of innocence of the Assamese people as a whole. They learned to kill people. So it was a lament for that. It is not, however, Trisha, it's not, however, a mournful poem, but it's a song of hope. I would like to call it a song of hope. I hope your first question I'm able to answer.
Yes, absolutely. And the song of hope, yeah, that really is it's heartwarming. Like I hope I believe I wanted to see it that way because when I was reading the book, there were times when I felt really hopeless. But at the other times, I also felt hopeful. There were moments when I said, yes, the thing is going to happen. This is going to happen. So I felt hope when I was reading the book. And but but then when I was reading the book, and you just mentioned that there were a lot of children who were affected also in this process, in this gloomy time, and Prabhat is perhaps is the main character, and he was also a child when I started reading. He's a college going boy, so he's a child
Yeah.
as well. And I was also reflecting on the history of Assam and the 1980s. Of course, the ASO movement, the Student Association movement, which started in the 1970s and got momentum in 1980s. And it was embraced as a mass movement. They were children as well, as compared to what I see now. Um, but they had a very they fought against the unauthorized settlement of a lot of people who had come there, and they had a clear idea of what they were doing. That's the student movements all across the country have come up like that. And so, but a part of it also moved into other outfits and things like that. So my question to this is, what is the genesis of Alpha movement? Who are its votaries? And is it the middle class or the left-leaning young people who are affected the most by it? And does it have an echo with the Naxalist movement that happened in West Bengal, the student movement that happened in West Bengal?
Trisha, to be truthful, it
Mm.
was basically a nationalist movement.
Okay.
And it stemmed from the apparent failure of the Assam movement. When the
Huh.
Assam movement failed to get results, the desired results,
Yes.
foreigners
Huh.
were not deported, the illegal settlements were not cleared. So when these
Yes.
failures were there and development was not occurring, so that led to the origin of the so-called Alpha movement. And you will see all the insurgents of this East, basically they always talk about separation and secession from India. And Alpha was no different from that. They talked about that. And basically it was the student community, one who the all Assam Students Union formed a political party, they went into power. And a lot of them dissatisfied people, they thought that this is not the way and we have to do something more. So that was it. And it was helped. It was supported by intelligentsia, it was supported by middle class, but it cut across classes and social groups.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
I'm just going to make a quick note. Okay. So you tried to treat this sensitive issue of this movement in Assam. And you actually portrayed through your portrayal of the insurgents with empathy. Despite that, the resolution of the novel suggests the authorial support for a peaceful Assam as an integral part of India. Could you please comment on that as well? We've heard the background story. Could you please comment on that?
I would like to comment on this. I like this question very much. You see, as I have already commented, that all the insurgents, the groups of the East, whether they are Assamese, Nagas, or whatever, they have already called for separation and secession from India. But this author believes, after the great Assamese Vaishnavas, saint and reformer Shankardev, who has advised Vaishayu Bharate Hat, that means you must bring your ware to the great Indian market only to which you belong. You have to deal with only in India to which you belong. So this is something in our heritage. It is also there, that stream of integrating with India. And for the author, India is not something that has fallen from the top, but it's a concrete reality which we wrested from the claws of a savage colonialism by united struggle of all our people. The young citizens seem to forget that India is a common heritage. Unity and not separation has to be the ideal. See, there were and still are feelings of deprivation over many things, angst at failing to belong, distrust that is that the composite compact of Indian people is being broken, apprehension that the state is not protecting the language, culture, and identity of the indigenous peoples, some very small tribes. There are endless grievances, but the solution cannot be hatred and violence. That cannot be the solution. It cannot be bloodshed and death. The struggle is essential, but dialogue for peace must prevail. That's what the author believes, and that's what he tries to delve out from the situation.
Yeah. So I'll also read out a small part from the blurb of the book. This novel is a work of fiction. The characters bear no resemblance to any person dead or alive. Yet they walked amongst us, all in flesh and blood, in thoughts and dreams. Fiction that reflects reality in a more truthful way. A masterly work of a master storyteller. Now that holds true, and it holds very true over here, now that we're actually getting to hear you. Now,
No. Yes.
Now I have another question now. Now, since it's a translation, you have done the translation.
Hmm.
Now the question is about the dynamics of it. It is often said the dynamics of translation of a novel by a translator and by the author himself makes a lot of difference. One of the most major concern was Tagore's translation of his own poetry. Now, despite winning the Nobel Prize, it is said that he sanitized, it can be seen now, but he sanitized the text to make it more acceptable to the Christian readership. And so, what is your take as an author in the actual practice of negotiation? So, before that, there is one question
Yeah.
somebody's asked in the audience: who will do the negotiations? I wonder. Now, I'll just quickly add to it also that yes, a lot of like Sir and many other like Indira Goswami also tried to negotiate between the two parties, but it didn't really happen so much. So my question now is again as an addition to author Aku, um, who will do the negotiations?
Negotiator will be the author and the reader combined.
Hmm. Hmm.
My take. A translated text must be comprehensible to the readers of that language to
Yes.
which it is
Huh.
translated.
Huh.
Otherwise, if the readers don't understand, it is lost.
Yes. Huh.
The sayings about Gurudev's own translation,
Huh.
I think it is wrong. You cannot criticize the translated text with common or literary sensibilities of the language from which it is translated. Say Bengali.
Huh. Yeah.
Bengali has got a long heritage of literary tradition,
Hmm.
sensibilities of its own, and
Hmm.
Gurudev wrote with those sensibilities in his original
Hmm.
Bengali text.
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
when he renders it into English,
Hmm.
he
Hmm.
has to make sure that it is also comprehensible
Okay.
to the author, I mean,
Huh.
reader. So that problem will always remain.
Huh.
But we negotiate it. One of the ways is, you see, author trying to do it
Huh.
whenever he feels that he can.
Hmm.
So, author taking liberty
Hmm.
during the problem is not, I'll comment on that.
Hmm. Yeah.
The authors during negotiation, the authors do not take liberties during translation. Which is the main problem with translators.
Hmm.
So, author as a translator, I think
Hmm.
if he can do it, has
Hmm.
got an added advantage because
Hmm.
otherwise the nonsense and
Hmm.
many other things of the
Hmm.
original literature is lost.
Hmm. Hmm. True. Okay. Now, suddenly I got a call, so I got lost in the process. But on that, another note on translation, when you're talking about translation, I wanted to also talk about the thing that there's a lot of writing in Assamese in English as well, by Assamese authors in English as well. In the last 2 decades, a host of writers in English have come up from Assam and other parts of Northeast. Some of them who made national fame are Dhruba Hazarika, Aruni Kashyap, Siddharth Dev, Mamang Dai, Temsilayo, Eastern Kire, Janvi Barua, Mitra Fukan, and many others. But even as a humble reader, I noticed that the portrayal of the reality is quite authentic. And so, how do you consider the impact of these writers on the general reading public, and how does it compare with the traditional impact of the Bhasha writers? Now, we have understood that while translation, we need to also keep in mind the target readership. Who are they, and how it should be um, understandable. They should understand the social context where the book is set in. But this is a little different. So their effect on Bhasha readers is different, perhaps, I am not sure, different perhaps than the original English writing. Could you please explain that to me?
Now, Trisha, you are starting to ask me difficult questions. Anyway, I'll try my best to answer. You see,
Huh.
there is a difference between
Hmm.
Assam, to its extent Manipur, and the rest of
Hmm.
the Northeast.
Okay.
Say
Hmm.
Nagaland, Meghalaya, Mizoram.
Hmm.
From
Hmm.
every state, every
Hmm.
language, very talented writers, poets are emerging. But
Hmm.
in those states, the
Hmm.
literary language is English. The readership
Okay.
is English because
Okay.
there is no writing in their original languages. There are
Hmm.
writings, but there are no literary output in their original languages.
Hmm.
But in Assam, there's a very strong tradition of the Assamese Bhasa literature, also in
Okay.
Manipur. So there is a
Hmm.
difference.
Hmm.
I have felt that
Hmm.
there is a disconnect
Hmm.
between the Assamese writers who are writing in English
Hmm.
and the reading public of Assam because of the
Hmm.
language difference. They're writing in
Hmm.
English. They're
Hmm.
writing to an English audience, which now is also in Assam quite small. It may
Hmm.
be wide in all India context, but in Assam,
Hmm.
that readership is small. So there is
Hmm.
a disconnect.
Hmm.
So though they are very good writers, very talented, their portrayal of the reality is very genuine.
Hmm.
Majority of them are not very well known in the Assamese literary scene. So
Hmm.
how to bridge this?
Hmm.
Possibly they will have to be retranslated into Assamese.
Ah. Huh.
So these writers have to be bilingual to a great
Yes.
extent. Because
Hmm.
I have myself written a novel in English,
Hmm.
which was published by the Speaking Tigers.
Hmm.
Then I translated it into Assamese.
Oh.
So
Okay.
then only it was appreciated in Assam by my readers.
Huh.
Very few have read it when it came out as Sleepwalker's Dream. That was the
Yes. Yes.
title.
I've read. I've seen it. Huh.
And
So
in
I thought
Assamese
that was the translation. My bad.
title, excuse me?
So I thought it was a translation from Assamese,
No, no.
and no, no, it was the opposite way around. That's interesting. Hmm. So what made you do that? What made? Why did you write it in English and then translate it into Assamese? Why into Assamese I know, but why the process?
You will laugh if I tell you the real thing why I wrote it in English.
Okay.
People are telling me, why don't you write in English? Then I thought, can I do it? Then I
Hmm.
thought, if a good publishing house takes up one of my English writings, then I will
Hmm.
know that I can at least scribble in English. So they took up, published the book, and then I had to redo it in Assamese as Pran Jui.
No, no, no. I'm reading the translation. I'm honestly, I don't say it very often, but I never found a dull moment. I was just there. I've actually marked some very interesting pages, some very interesting lines, specifically that fox laugh part. And he's like laughing like a fox. And have you heard the fox laughing? So I found that very interesting. There were moments of even humor in the entire process. I can't find it right now. Oh no. But there were lines which really made me think. Violence is the reaction of a repressed people. The question is, what kind of violence? What kind of violence Partho released a dramatic expression, not scattered violence. If violence it has to be, it should be the violence of the awakened public that can sweep away the obstacles confronting you. The violence of a group deteriorates to anarchic violence and eventually alienates the people. They fail to understand the expression of such violence. Personally, if you ask me, I will tell you that I have no confidence in violence. But then again, I do. I suppose violence cannot be avoided totally. Now, when I read this, how can I not like it? Of course. So I think it's a writer's dilemma that they think it's never perfect what they do, but to us, to readers, I think it's beautiful. So now I hope we are going to write much more, but we'll end this session with one last easy question since you complained of the complexity of the questions that I asked. One easy question is, you're a practicing physician, and we have seen some of the best writers in Indian languages, including Malayalam, Bangla, and Marathi. Um, that are writers good of repute come from this fraternity. Do you think the profession, that your profession, gives you a better insight into the psychology of human beings?
Maybe it does. Maybe it does. But I have a different thing to tell you. If you
Huh.
are a physician and a
Sorry?
writer too, if you are a physician and a
Huh.
writer too, you probably don't have to worry about your livelihood.
Huh.
That is one. There's a
Huh.
Assamese saying, Prathame
Huh.
Saul Kotha Pase Hori Kotha. The first you
Acha.
have to think about your meal, then about
Yeah.
your prayer.
Yes.
So that is one very important aspect because in
Hmm.
most of the Bhasha literatures, except
Hmm.
possibly Bengali, Marathi, Tamil, the big ones, you cannot
Hmm.
make a career or a vocation by writing alone, writing fiction alone. Journalism is separate.
Hmm.
But so you will find in most of the literatures, these writers are people who are into different jobs.
Hmm.
So my feeling is that if a person, a writer, basically is writing is a passion, and in
Hmm.
addition, whatever might be the profession, a writer would continue to write.
Hmm.
I don't think it gives a very great advantage, some small advantage to the physicians
Hmm.
to learn about the human psyche from their ear. Had it been true,
Hmm.
the criminal lawyers would have been the greatest writers.
True, 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 true. Yes, I didn't see that coming. So thank you very much for that answer. And I really think it's all not just in Bhasha literature, but any other language. You have to first think about filling your stomach, and then the soft parts an individual and the country comes out. Now we've got one question. I'm trying to scroll it down, but the new this thing that makes it difficult. Okay, so there is a question by Shubhashish. Is it a prerequisite or desirable for a translator of literature to have advanced level proficiency in both languages of the original work as well as the translated work?
My feeling is that you have to have a total mastery over the language to which you are translating. Otherwise,
Okay.
you don't have, if you are translating from English to Assamese, you have to be a
Huh.
master in Assamese writing. But you have to
Okay.
comprehend English with its nuances and everything. So you
Huh.
don't have to be master there. You have to
Okay.
understand that, but you have to be master in properly putting it in the translated language.
Okay. So we have a few more comments, and yes, I think that's done. Does anybody have any more questions? We can take them up right away, or you can just write to us, and we will pass the question to the author, and perhaps you'd like to. We can also give you the answers thereafter, whichever suits you. Shubhashish, I hope you got your answer. Uh, yes, so author Aku has mentioned Tagore had to be careful. He wanted to get it across safely. The authorities did watch, so he tempered the writing without losing the essence to fit the accepted narrative. Yes. Um, so I think we are also running out of time. We have spent enough time and we have given a sneak peek into what the book is about. And so I would like to request everyone to please read this book and um comprehend what is the situation there. So for me, when I started reading this book, perhaps I knew very little of what was happening there. But thereafter, as I've written in one of my posts also, I started reading a lot more. I also picked up my very own book, a book that we have published. It's called The Bag by Arup Datta, and it is written in English. And if we do not read more works by more writers, and we do not we will never be able to assimilate what is actually going on. So I'm actually looking forward to the other two books in the trilogy after this book, since this is the first book of the trilogy. And I'm sure more people will be interested in knowing what is going on around in that area where you've set the book in. Last but not the least, thank you very much for this wonderful session. And yes, I'll ponder upon why lawyers are not better writers. And I'm sure all of you had a good time. You enjoyed something, learned something new, and we will be waiting for questions if you have any. And we wish you all the best. Do well and come back again soon for the next Translation Tuesday session. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank
And night.
you. Good night.